Hi, everyone. We are going to start off today with Rafat Al-Barouki talking about Domino-REST. This is sort of a follow-up to a small talk given last week, or 2 weeks ago, where we were talking about the Jackson implementation that works with GWT and J2CL. As I understand it, this tool lets you take JAX-RS interfaces for regular Java that you're implementing on your server and automatically generate implementations that work in the JVM, in Android, and of course in GWT. To be able to call that server and get resources back into your client.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I will talk now today about Domino-REST, which basically is an app-based tool that will generate clients based on JAX-RS annotations. So basically, if you want to talk with a REST endpoint, you need to implement or add an interface with the required JAX-RS annotations. For example, the path for the endpoint and some of the query parameters if presented, and the HTTP method, and so on. And then Domino-REST will read this interface and these annotations or JAX-RS annotations, and based on that, will generate client for this endpoints. And this client will work on GWT on the web and on the JVM using default implementation of Vertex. And it will also work on Android using default implementation provided by Domino-REST itself. So what really happens is that when you create an interface using these JAX-RS annotations, Domino-REST will go through all these annotations and will generate a client for each endpoint. So basically, if we have an endpoint that, for example, mapped on a specific path, for example, /x/y, and it uses post HTTP method. So what you really want to do is to create a class and put the path annotations of JAX-RS for /x/y and add the post HTTP method on that. And of course, if you want to send any body on that, so you can also provide your input to that endpoint. So after that, on the build time, as I mentioned before, it's an app-based tool. So it will also work with Jekyll. It will generate a client, and this client will actually have all the details wanted to integrate with this endpoint. I'll go through a demo to represent this on 3 different clients. For example, if I have a simple endpoint, and this endpoint will have to be implemented in some sort of server or backend server. And then there's 3 clients. One is web implemented using GWT, and Java client or JVM client based on Vertex, and another client, which is Android application, also to interact with this endpoint. So as a start, I will start with the interface itself, which basically provides the information needed to talk to this endpoint. So if we have a resource called person, for example, so I will generate a person service that will actually talk to every endpoint based on that person or implemented in the backend. So this is the contract for the people. I will zoom a little bit. So basically, it will hit the server on this path /service/API/persons, and it will the backend provides all these 5 endpoints. The create, delete, basically the CRUD operations, and each one of them has its own produces, consumes, and the path, and also the HTTP method of that. And it will take the body for this HTTP request. So Domino-REST will basically read this interface, and it will generate the client on each endpoint based on that. So, for example, the create, it will generate a client that hits this path, or actually the base path of the interface, and it it will send an HTTP post method, and the produces and the consumes for this endpoint is application/JSON. So, and it will take the person DTO and convert it to JSON in order to send it in the HTTP post body. So by default, Domino-REST uses Domino-Jackson as a default implementation for serializing and deserializing JSONs. But you can also provide your own implementations for this, for serializing and deserializing things using some annotations provided by Domino-REST itself. Also, we support all JAX-RS annotations, the path parameters, the query parameters, and so on. After that, it will generate, as I said before, it will generate a client for that, which basically the person service factory, and this factory is basically the client that needed to interact with this endpoint. Now, this factory will actually has all the methods and all the configurations needed in order to access this endpoint. Now, also, as I said, the interface or the contract for this demo is the person service. So I have to provide a DTO for the person, which basically takes ID, first name, last name. And also I can share some, or let's say people's command, which basically will provides methods to simplify the call for the endpoint. Now, the natural way of calling this endpoint using Domino-REST is basically to use the factory interface. So if I want to list all the people inside this service, I need to use the generated factory dot get the instance of it and then calling the list method. Now, once I get or actually call this method, I have to provide on success and on failed, because the HTTP request may fail or may success. And then I can start my work or continue my work based on this result, and then hit the send button. So it's basically in the GWT is implemented using XHR. So it's a AJAX call. So in this example, I provided a simple class that lists all the methods needed to interact with person or people endpoints. Now, because of this, I have these three classes in a shared module, which means I can share this contract with all the clients, and also if my server provides or supports JAX-RS annotations, it will use this interface to implement the endpoints. So using this interface or using this this module, I can share all these details with all the clients and also the implementation. So in my example, I did that. So I have this as shared, and then I have the implementation of my server, which basically implemented using Quartz. So in the person resource, I just need to implement this person service, which comes from the shared module, and it will inherit every JAX-RS annotation, so I don't need to provide any. And then I will simply implement my business logic here. So, for example, I have nothing, just CRUD operations to save on H2 file. So this is the part of the implementation in the server side. Now, in the client side, it will also do the same. I just need to import this shared, which provides my contract to contact with the person service, and generate and call this endpoint using the commands, or basically using the factory generated from Domino-REST. So, for example, I have a web client here that basically it calls the endpoint using the people commands on provided by the shared module. So for example, if the user hits the button on list, I will call list people method inside the people commands, and then get the people and maybe printed it in some way, and also on each other methods. Now, In the JVM, for example, I do the same. So basically, I have the people commands using the shared module, and we'll call all the methods in the same way as done in the GWT module, or actually in the web module. In the Android, I will do the same. I will going to start these clients just to make sure everything works. So for example, I have the server up and running here, and I will simply, for example, I will run the JVM example, which based on Vertex. So once I hit the start, I will try to, for example, list people, list all the peoples, and also I can do everything like delete, for example, the 7. Delete the person. Now this basically uses the clients, or the clients generated in this shared module. But the only thing that I need to add in the, for example, in the JVM, I need to add the implementation for REST in JVM. So Domino-REST will have the Domino-REST server, which basically implemented the clients based on Vertex, and also the shared module implemented here. And in the GWT, for example, I have to provide the GWT version of Domino-REST, which basically this annotation that implements the HTTP request using XHR. Now, for example, if I'm using Android, I will basically add the Android version of Domino-REST, and will also use the same client generated in the shared. So using this, I'm sharing my contracts if I want to. Of course, I will share my contracts with all the clients for my endpoints, and even if the server supports JAX-RS, it will also use this interface to implement the implementations. So I run the simple JVM example. Now I'll start to run the web application, and I'll start to run also the Android application. I'm not an expert in Android, so please forgive me for this layout. Basically, this will do the same. For example, let's go to check the code. In this first fragment, I will list the people. So once the user clicks on the list people button, I will use the same people commands provided by my shared module, and will load the people and then show dialog for that. So I simply list on people, and it will load all the peoples provided by the server. And also in the web example, I have my web server started at 1990. Okay, it's compiling. So let's check the code again to see what will happen. So basically, when I have 5 buttons, once the button is clicked, I also will call the people commands in order to list the people and show in the screen. Okay, let's go to home, for example, and then try to list people, and it will list all the peoples. Now, if we check the network tab in the browser, it will actually do a post or GET request using to this server, which runs on 8080 using Quartz, which basically uses the interface provided by the shared module in order to implement all this. Now, in the GitHub. In the GitHub page, we have everything related to all the features supported by this. This is the sharing clients that I actually showed you in the demo, which basically do the same thing. And this is all the features provided by Domino-REST. The default implementation is, as I said before, the JVM implementation is Vertex, but it can be implemented in any different technology. Also, Domino-REST uses Domino Jackson by default for serializing and deserializing, which also can be overridden. It works with GWT and Jekyll because it's based on apt. And that's it. If anyone has
one
any
question we had partway through is about the header annotation.
Yes.
Just to confirm that you support that.
Yes, of course. We can provide headers. We can provide also in the programmatically way. So you can basically get in there, for example, you can set and you can put the headers needed or the whatever you need, and basically you can override the URLs, and you can do maximum tries, and you can do timeout and so on.
So to programmatically do it, you do it like you're showing here, but you could also go to the interface and add the annotation, and the generated code would be updated automatically.
Yes, of course. Using this.
What about as an argument?
No, not here. It should be as part of the arguments, yes.
This header parameter, which case, for example, ID and string ID. But to actually add this as a header.
Header
and
parameters,
also the
parameter, and path parameters,
and also request parameters, yes.
Are there annotations it doesn't support? I know this has come up before. That'd be worth mentioning. Context, for example, or URI info.
Actually, what we do for context is that we just ignore the argument on the client generated, because it's something that should be implemented in the server only. Something like that.
Yes.
So if you have the in your method at context, when you try to call that method from the generated factory, you won't find that argument to pass it. You won't need to pass it at all.
Basically, we'll ignore it because it doesn't make sense in the client. It's basically a server thing.
Any other questions people have? I wonder if you could show quickly the generated code.
Yeah, of course.
And how it takes some of those things and what that passes it to. That way, it is cross-platform.
This is basically the factory which generated using the service. It will generate, for example, for the create method, it will add the HTTP method and the content type, the accept, the path, the service route, if provided. For example, I want to hit the 8080, and some of the services I want to hit, for example, 8181. So you can provide that. All these details is documented in the GitHub page. And also the request writer and the response reader, which basically can be overridden. By default, it will use Domino Jackson for that, but you can also implement your own request writer. For example, if you want to send the request as XML, not JSON, and also if the response provided is, for example, base 64, and it's it's an image or whatever. So you can basically add the annotation on the like this. You can add the reader method or the writer method, and then provide the class that basically will do the serializing and deserializing of the data.
Another question in chat: can you use other custom annotations? So Spring Framework provides its own JAX-RS annotations. Is it possible to register some way to handle those?
Currently, we don't have implementation for that, for Spring Boot annotations.
Okay, the problem is that there is a lot of magic in the Spring annotations. So it's the combinations, and there is a lot of default things. So it just makes sometimes generating those clients based on those annotations is not aligned with this with the JAX-RS annotations as somehow. Okay, at least you can share the bojos in this way. Okay, it's possible to implement support for the Spring, but I'm not sure how much of effort it would take. Especially
other question: what about polymorphism support with subclasses?
Yeah. It supports what Jackson supports for now. So Jackson has supports for polymorphism somehow. So it supports that. Okay, whatever is supported in Domino Jackson should be supported by Domino-REST. We are talking about JSON serialization, right? For polymorphism.
Yes, that's my understanding from the question.
Yeah. Yeah, then sure, yeah. Domino Jackson supports polymorphism somehow. There is it supports. I think there is a case or two, but the most general cases are yes supported for polymorphism by Domino Jackson. Just I think it's on the wiki.
The polymorphism thing, yeah.
Yep. I think there's a lot of details here explaining things.
Yeah.
From memory, I think the most important thing is that you can't do things that look like reflection.
Yep.
You have to actually register everything up front to say, here are all the possible types that I'll handle.
Yes, exactly.